My name is Jordan Richter. I'm an investigative journalist for an independent media outlet. Ever since I had to use my wits, an old tape recorder, and some fake weed I made from my mother's arugula plant to catch a few bullies in their lies back in middle school, I've been obsessed with exposing corruption. I've spent years chasing the truth, going undercover, and even doing some modest hacking. Mostly, I do political stuff, scandals, cover-ups, bribery. Every politician has a skeleton in their closet, and if you look hard enough, they usually have a few dozen. It's not out of the ordinary for people to send me evidence of bad behavior on a potential suspect, like hotel receipts, photos, bank statements, that kind of thing. Don't get me wrong, I never publish anything I get without verifying it. I always look at every case as hearsay until proven correct. You can really mess up someone's life with a false accusation, and as someone who's been through that twice, I don't want to be that guy. Besides, sometimes the stuff people send in is just too vague, not convincing, or obviously faked. But every once in a while, I find something really deep, something my editor would call beyond the pale, something dark. This is one of those times. I recently received a recording and transcript of a phone call that the whistleblower, who chose to remain anonymous, secretly recorded and sent to me via email. The first time I listened to it, I was shocked and had to re-listen several times just to be sure I heard it right. Due to technical difficulties with the recording, I can't post it here, but I can share the transcript. If what is contained within is even remotely true, then anyone who lives in Barron County, Ohio needs to get in contact with either their local travel agent or perhaps a National Guard unit. The following is the transcript, exactly how it was sent to me, word for word. The recording begins. The sound of a phone ringing can be heard before a handset is picked up with a soft click and a man speaks. Voice 1.
Sheriff's office. How may I help you, sir, or...
A second man's voice can be heard shouting through the phone. Voice 2.
Or no, what the hell is going on in your district?
A chair creaks, and it sounds as though Voice 1 is clearing his throat. Voice 1.
Mr. Caranti,
Voice 2.
Shut your mouth before I shut it for you. Don't you know not to use my name on the phone, you hopeless lump? I gave you a job to do. One job. And now I'm hearing all kinds of things about things going wrong down there. You think my group funded your campaign so these kinds of mistakes could happen?
Voice 1.
Sir, I assure you, my deputies are doing everything we can to.
Voice 2.
Your deputies? Do you have any idea what I just got done reading? One of your loudmouth deputies has been babbling online about seeing a techno in the freaking woods. Thousands of people viewed his post, or not. If just one of them does any amount of digging, our entire operation could be jeopardized.
The sound of a pencil snapping in half can be heard. Voice 1.
I'll find the responsible man and deal with him, sir. It won't happen again.
Voice 2.
It better not. As for the park, why didn't you seize control of New Wilderness like I directed? We need that installation as a base for operations, and those two-bit rangers are still running around, firing guns everywhere, stirring up the herds, and causing the anomalies to migrate. I want them gone, Werner. I don't care how you do it. Just get rid of them.
Voice 1.
Sir, with all due respect, the Night Rangers outnumber us 2-1, and they're the only ones keeping the technos and organics at bay. I've lost 2 men already to the Echo Spiders, and we can barely keep the roads blocked as it is. Civilians are finding their way in, and every one of them that survives has to be silenced or discredited. I need more men.
Voice 2.
I have 1,000 of my best fighters on standby as we speak, but I need live specimens or not. The more the merrier, and we can't get them if those polo shirt wearing rent-a-cops are killing them all. Ever since that Cromwell girl popped the last Oak Walker, we've had nothing but spikes in the electromagnetic satellite readings from your area. Time is of the essence if we want to contain this thing. Arrest the Night Rangers, clear the New Wilderness Wildlife Reserve of all personnel and prepare the site for LSAR to move in.
Voice 1.
If I move on the park, the rangers might resist. I know the head of security there, and that old marine won't give up without a fight. This could spark a real shooting war right in our backyard, and if the public finds out.
Voice 2.
If the public finds out that there are moon-eyed fucks stumbling around in the woods, they'll start the shooting war themselves. For God's sake, Sheriff, use your head for something other than a hat rack. You want to flush the rangers out? Drive a herd into them, and let the freaks do their job. Once everyone's dead, we'll come in and clean up. No one will ever have to know it was you.
Voice 1.
Look, this would be a whole lot easier if we had more help. I'm not a miracle worker, and rumors spread every time we take another casualty on the force. It's a small county, sir, with even smaller towns. All it takes is one person talking, and I can't contain it. Just give me 50 guys, kitted out and ready to go, and at least then we can man the roadblocks.
There is a long pause, and a clock can be heard ticking in the background. Voice 2.
Fine, I can send 50, but no more until the LZ is clear. The situation is rapidly deteriorating, and the more men we move, the more attention we'll attract. If we can't seal the breach soon, we could face an ecological disaster that would make Chernobyl look like Christmas in the Bahamas. I don't need to remind you what we'll be forced to do if that happens.
Voice 1.
Clean sweep.
Voice 2.
Exactly. I won't risk creating another Black Crow Island. The press is distracted by the upcoming elections right now, but if we make one slip up, we'll have reporters and homegrown watchdogs breathing down our necks all across the country. We cannot afford another disaster zone, especially not after what happened in Canada.
Voice 1.
I understand, sir. As soon as the reinforcements arrive, I'll have New Wilderness captured for you within a week. 3 days tops.
Voice 2.
Time is critical, Warnaw. Do not disappoint me on this. Get control of your department. Shut the Night Rangers down, and keep the anomalies contained until we get there. I'll work on suppressing any more online activity regarding your area, and run some interference in case a few wannabe private eyes start Googling things they shouldn't.
Voice 1.
Yes, sir.
Voice 2.
Oh, and one more thing. The leak in your department, it's some moron named Hammond. I don't care how you do it, or where. Just make him disappear. Now.
Voice 1.
Hammond, huh? I should have known. Believe me, sir, it's as good as done.
There is a muted click from the other end of the line, and the recording ends. Naturally, I dove into the internet and started hunting for information as soon as I read the transcript. Try as I might, I couldn't find anything about a Barron County, Ohio in the mainstream press or on any map anywhere. There is a Barron County in Wisconsin, but nowhere in the foothills of Appalachia, almost as if it's been selectively deleted from every record available. As for the New Wilderness Wildlife Reserve, I did manage to locate its homepage just before a strange computer glitch made it unavailable. Just last week, the park announced it wouldn't be holding a tour season this year and that all grounds were closed to the public. It also issued a call for more volunteers for its security department, offering a whopping $40 an hour to anyone who stayed there longer than a week, along with free room and board. Sadly, I didn't get the chance to find any contact information, the site crashing in what I suspect was a coordinated DDoS attack from an unknown source. What really stood out to me about the whole thing was the capitalization of the transcript of the bizarre words used by the two callers: technos, organics, and the vague threat known as the breach. These seem to refer to some kind of animal species, judging by the use of the word herds, but it was hard to make heads or tails of it. My search in the regular web turned up nothing, until I stumbled across this site and found 4 posts, 3 of them belonging to a girl named Madison Cromwell, and 1 belonging to a sheriff's deputy, Sean Hammond. From what I can gather in reading their accounts, both claim to have seen creatures of gargantuan and supernatural proportions. If there is any truth to them, then it might be reasonable to infer that the creatures Miss Cromwell encountered, called the Oak Walker in the transcript by the mysterious Mr. Caronte, was likely inorganic due to its plant-like characteristics. This creature seemed to be highly intelligent and even possibly telekinetic, with the ability to create and control smaller human-sized creatures referred to by Cromwell as puppets. It is also important to note that in both Hammond's account and in the secret phone call, the creature known as the Big One or the Oathwalker is described as a type of apex predator whose downfall contributed largely to the explosion of anomaly activity outside of the regular area. It is entirely possible that Miss Cromwell did in fact succeed in killing the creature, which in turn allowed lesser species to thrive in its absence and spill out into the environment. In the second account, the strange metallic monstrosity that attacked Officer Hammond seems to fit rather well into the techno category given its electronic and mechanical attributes. This very well could be one of the echo spiders brought up by Sheriff Wernaugh. While there isn't much information to go by, it seems that organics and technos are merely subcategories of the various paranormal beings that came from the breach. And these anomalies present a clear and present danger to all human beings around them. A mention of electromagnetic readings powerful enough to be observed by satellites also seems to indicate that there is significant environmental disturbance going on in the area, which may have contributed to the origins of these species, or perhaps is a byproduct of their existence. This, of course, was troubling to say the least, but I wanted to know more. And for that, I'd have to find the people who had supposedly witnessed these occurrences firsthand. Armed with 2 complete names, I info hunted and found some alarming results. Madison Cromwell's family recently moved from Black Oak to an unknown location somewhere deep in the hills of Idaho. For a family of relatively low income to undertake such an abrupt move, they were either pursuing better income or desperately fleeing from some form of danger. I have no idea if Madison is alive or not. All of her social media accounts have been deleted, and none of her contacts on the various platforms seem to know if she quit and disappeared the last night of her job or is still lying low somewhere. In the case of Sean Hammond, it was announced early yesterday morning that a gunfight broke out in the Barron County Sheriff's Office between members of the department, resulting in 3 dead and 4 injured. Sean Hammond is said to be still at large, charged with rather serious crimes of organizing domestic terrorism, though no more details have been provided on that. One of the casualties was Officer James Walker, the partner Hammond referenced in his account on this site. Walker was shot 12 times in the firefight and taken to the Black Oak Regional Hospital. According to the hospital reports, he died of his wounds on the operating table soon after. For such violence to break out between fellow peace officers and for such drastic charges to be leveled, there must be serious issues in the Barron County government, which lends more than a little credence to the validity of the whistleblower's claims. But it gets worse. Upon looking into the reference to Black Crow Island, I could only find a passing mention about an explosion that destroyed an abandoned sanatorium on a small island off the coast of British Columbia. Not much was provided in terms of detail, except that 2 people had been seen fleeing the island on a rowboat, but were never apprehended. How this is connected, I do not know, but if it was important enough to mention in the phone call, I can only assume it had ties to the same forces at work in Barron County. As for the vague LSAR group of which Mr. Caronte appears to be a major player in, I found nothing that matched the description of his lethal capabilities. No large-scale private security companies hail by that name, and while I have no doubt it's an acronym for something, I don't know what it could be. Whoever they are, I seriously doubt the fighters of LSAR are interested in the well-being of Barron County or the employees at the New Wilderness Wildlife Reserve. That leads me to this moment, as I finish typing the finishing touches on my entry. Normally, I would say to refer to my article in our media website for the rest of the story. But my editor was found dead just this morning with a bullet in his head, the back of his head. I have a well-adapted gut feeling when I've been asking too many questions, stirred around in too many pots. And I know they're coming for me. Random cars have been following me to and from home. Strangers keep watching my apartment building, and I found a tracking device stuck to the trunk of my car today. Maybe this little post will garner enough attention to alert the people of Barron County to their imminent danger. Perhaps the new wilderness night rangers will read this in time and find a way to avoid whatever horrible plans Sheriff Warna and Elsar have for them. Regardless, my part in this investigation is at an end. My wife and 2 boys are waiting for me at the predetermined spot I arranged over the burner phone I bought at a local phone kiosk. I have withdrawn all of my money and cash and have booked flights for 3 different countries, bus tickets for 4 different cities, and a rental car with 3 sets of fake license plates. My social media accounts are all deleted. My entire family has shed their personal phones, and I even dyed my hair. If someone reading this is hunting me, good luck. I've dug up people who didn't want to be found for half my life, and my family is at stake here. You'll never catch us. And if you're someone who lives in Barron County, or heck, anywhere near Ohio, all I can say is, brace for impact. Don't trust Elsar. If you take nothing else from my post, then spread those words everywhere. Share it, tweet it, paint it on the freaking walls. Someone has to do something. Someone has to stop them before they go too far. I know it sounds like some crazy conspiracy theory. I know most of you won't believe me, but I swear they're real. Real and dangerous. My name is Greg Burkitts. They already know who I am, so there's no point in the whole fake name thing, is there? Before it all went wrong, I used to work for a little construction company in Tennessee. My wife, Sasha, and I had an apartment. We were making ends meet, even if just barely, and were trying to have a kid. We both knew it would make our lives 10 times more hectic, but we didn't care. Some people might think that's stupid, but when you're with a person you love, your perspective changes. I wanted to be a dad in the worst way, and every time I saw Sarah paging through a pregnancy book or shopping for baby clothes online, it made us both giggle like excited school children. One day, our boss called the entire crew together and handed out pamphlets detailing an offer made by some oddball group called the Black Crow Foundation. With all the industrial accidents that had been happening all around the country lately, the foundation wanted to help keep America's waterways and air pollution-free, but they needed manpower, especially men who knew their way around power tools. For such help, the massive non-profit would pay each man $250,000 for 1 month of work at various chemical cleanup sites around the country, with all personal protective equipment provided for us. You heard that right. $250,000 post-tax for just 30 days of work. Our boss checked the group out thoroughly, called government registration offices, even met with their attorney, all to ensure it wasn't some elaborate scam. Even the army sent out a high-ranking officer to vouch for them. In the end, the boss man told us it was the biggest grin I'd ever seen him wear, that the BCF was real and gave us the green light to sign up. Everyone did, including me. After all, for that much money, who wouldn't? Besides, Sarah and I were getting by, but as soon as she got pregnant, I knew I'd need a lot more money to keep my family warm and fed. Call me what you will, but I love my wife, and I wanted to give her everything. I would have even gone if they only offered $50,000. Sasha was naturally both thrilled and skeptical when I broke the news to her. For a price so steep, she reasoned there had to be a catch. But we both knew to throw such an opportunity aside on suspicion alone was ludicrous. We might never get this kind of chance again. So I bid her an emotional goodbye, packed my bags, and got on a bus provided by the foundation, bound for my pre-selected work site. Several days later, I found myself slogging through the forests of southern Ohio, tired and missing home, while the overcast sky wept curtains of continuous rain. My rubber boot slid on the mud, and I tripped. "Careful." 36 caught me under my right arm and kept me from falling on my face. "You don't want to rip your suit." "You mean no one wants to see me end up like 7? Raindrops pattered down on the yellow plastic hood over my head, each tom-tom of liquid rhythm a stark reminder of just what a torn suit could entail. 24, are you alright?" The sharp voice of R11 barked from the front of the column. His olive-colored rubber overalls matched the gloomy surroundings of the Appalachian foothills, and the skeletal trees dripped cold rain onto us both with indifference. I eyed the shiny black rifle in his gloved hands and straightened up. "I'm fine, I just slipped." R11 stepped closer to me, and his wary gaze searched my burden from behind his gas mask. "Equipment check." The rest of the column froze, all eyes on me, 36 and R11. The other guards shifted on their feet in uncomfortable stamps, stroked their rifles with nervous thumbs, and scanned the trees. My fellow workers in their yellow suits stood motionless, all waiting to see if I had made some dreaded mistake, one that would spell my immediate removal. Why do they all have to stare like that? Doing my best not to sigh in annoyance and embarrassment, I unshouldered my bulky pack and balanced it on one knee. "All in order, sir. Nothing's broken." R11 glared hard at me, and his narrowed eyes traveled the length of my suit with meticulous scrutiny. No one moved, and aside from the pattering rain, not a sound could be heard. A few yards away, R16, one of the other guards, flexed his grip on his rifle and took a step my way. "Please, God, I didn't do anything wrong. My suit isn't ripped. I feel fine. I didn't drop anything." "Clear." R11 let his shoulders slacken and took one hand off his rifle to give me an encouraging clap on the arm. "Hang in there and watch your step, alright? It's not much further." With that, 36 helped pull my pack over my shoulders again, and the column shuffled onward, grateful to be out from under the hawkish watch of the guards. I put my mind to breathing under my tight-fitted respirator and tried not to think about 7. With the dull gray sky above empty of any birds and no wind to speak of, the squelching of boots in the mud, muffled breathing under protective masks, and the creak of rucksack straps echoed like cannon shots. I couldn't smell anything other than the chlorine sting of my rubber mask. My dry throat cried out for water, but I knew we wouldn't be allowed to drink anything until we reached the site. 36 hefted his pack higher on his broad shoulders ahead of me, and I took a moment to study him. As with all the others, I didn't know his name, and he didn't know mine. All we had to go by were numbers given to us at random the first day we showed up. That had been by design, and as far as I knew, even the guards with their green suits, black guns, and the ominous R before their code numbers didn't know one another's names. None of the guys from my old job in Tennessee were at the site, and I had a feeling that this too was deliberate. Yet, of all the workers so far, 36 seemed to be the only one who wasn't spooked by the bizarre secrecy of the operation. He reminded me of my father, at least twice my age and a head taller, with silver hair and a warm smile that didn't reflect the suspicion the rest of the crew emanated. In fact, 36 seemed to be the one person in the entire operation who never drew any attention, no matter what he did. When he'd somehow found out about my birthday on the second day at base camp, 36 had miraculously produced an old-style Hershey bar as an impromptu gift. Even the straight-laced colonel had been too shocked at seeing me with retro candy to yell about it, though he'd doubled the guard around camp afterward. If they would just let someone go into town for better food, chocolate wouldn't be so rare. I mean, seriously, they're paying us a stupid amount just to be here. Does the colonel really think we'd run off? The only guy I know of without a number, and he's got an enormous stick shoved up his. "We're here." I almost ran into 36, and my heart did a nervous flip-flop, a halt at his words. The rest of the column filed into the edge of the clearing behind me, and one by one ground to a standstill, the squelch of boots dying to a solemn silence. Glad for the reprieve and curious, I shuffled aside to peer around 36 into the work site for the first time. Whoa. It sat nestled between a grove of pines like a great sleeping dragon of steel, with the prow jutting out over a defilade and the stern hunched against several limestone boulders. The massive propellers hung a good 15 feet above the ground, and the radio antennas rose high into the slate-gray sky above the dense trees in rigid lines. All around, the green pipes stood bent or broken from the weight of the thing coming down on them, and ripples in the bulky steel hull showed where the craft's algae-lined skin had slammed into the ground. I blinked hard and took a step forward, almost unable to believe my own eyes. Is that a battleship? Eyes on me. A cold, familiar voice cut through the tension, and the others broke their wide-eyed stares to find the colonel perched on the hood of a nearby army truck, dressed in his own olive drab protective suit. From where I stood, I couldn't see the colonel's eyes behind his plastic gas mask visor, but the stern caution in his voice, the way he didn't completely turn to face us as if afraid to take his eyes off the warship, made ice run through my blood. This is the work site. You will work here from 0600 to 1800 hours every day. You will stay in your assigned work teams and report any new findings directly to the guard force. Under no circumstances are you to take anything from this area for personal use. Such actions will result in immediate removal. Am I understood? Seven's manic scream filtered through my memory, along with the echo of the gunshot that ended it. I nodded along with everyone else. Good. The colonel waved his gloved hand at the landlocked vessel, and I could have sworn I caught his voice tremble ever so slightly. Our guard forces have already swept both the ship and the surrounding area for security threats. Your job is to take radiological and magnetic readings, as well as gather all loose items inside the ship for collection. Scanning teams will move in first, then the evidence teams. All recovered items will be bagged and placed in secured containers before being loaded onto the trucks here. He pointed to the row of waiting diesel trucks, against whom leaned several more soldiers in green chemical suits, all carrying rifles. Any questions? You mean like how did a battleship end up in the middle of nowhere, Ohio? Still, I didn't raise my hand, and no one else did either. Something about this rubbed me wrong. The air tasted metallic to my mask, and a cold sensation rippled down my spine like water over the bones. It occurred to me that ever since arriving at the base camp a few miles away, I had yet to see a bird or any kind of animal in this general vicinity. The lack of noise had been unsettling then, but now it made my stomach churn. I risked a glance over my shoulder at the way we'd come. My gaze met R-16's, and he, along with the rest of the guard force, stared back from their line drawn across the trail, weapons at low ready. Sweat started to roll down my armpits, and I tried to breathe slow to calm my panic. They're just securing the perimeter, that's all. The colonel said we get to leave at 1800. They're just here for our protection. Relax. 36's muffled whisper startled me from my frantic thoughts. They don't want to shoot anyone. They're as nervous as you are. Gripping the straps of my pack, I swallowed a sour-tasting lump in my throat, glad he couldn't see my doubtful wince behind my respirator. If you say so. Ahead, the colonel checked his watch and threw another murky look toward the looming battleship. Right, if there aren't any questions, team leaders, take charge of your units and get to work. Like trained yellow automatons, 36, myself and the rest of the workers unshouldered our heavy packs and began to ready various pieces of equipment. Some had hammers, drills, handheld gas torches, and battery-powered saws. Others, like my team, had Geiger counters, electromagnetic detectors, and enough cameras to fit out a library in North Korea. Up until now, the exact details of our job had been kept secret by the higher-ups, who gave us vague replies whenever we asked. Even though it made more sense as the seconds ticked by, I didn't feel any better about it. I picked up some sort of handheld meter and noticed a few words stenciled on the side in faded, smeared black letters, as if someone had tried to scrub them off but failed. Property of the Environmental Liminal Space Alleviation and Reduction Program. My brow furrowed. LSAR? I'd thought we were working for the Black Crow Foundation. Perhaps this was some sort of hand-me-down piece of gear donated by someone else. 9 and I will take the readings. 24, you and 15 will record. My team leader 11 adjusted the black nylon strap on his side-slung Geiger counter and broke me from my train of thought. 36 said nothing, silent and content with his large flashlight. Our team was the only one with 5 members, and for some reason, 11 never remembered 36 in any of his checks or briefings. It always bothered me, but not enough to say anything, since 36 never seemed to mind. I wasn't that close with the team anyway, 36 being my only friend in camp. In fact, I'd seen the others so infrequently that in this moment, I couldn't recall what they looked like without their suits on. How are we getting in? 15 visibly shook, and his gloved hands almost dropped the camera he held twice. 11 jerked his head at another team that lugged a large roll of rope netting toward the ship. I figure we'll climb the side. No way we're cutting through all that armor, not without bigger cutting torches. To my left, 9 swiveled his hooded head to examine our tiny group. So we're just not gonna talk about the fact that there is a literal battleship in the middle of the woods? His voice rang out louder than he likely intended, and all but 36 froze. 11, 15 and I all glared at 9, our eyes darting toward the nearby guards. None looked our way, but still, my skin crawled. That was way too close. As if he thought the same thing, 9 let his shoulders slump in a sheepish, uncomfortable apology. Later, 11 hissed behind his respirator and rolled his deflated rucksack up in a tarp to keep the rain from soaking it further. The rest of us followed suit, and with our gear shouldered, we headed for the beached steel warship. In a broad line, our team moved along with the other scanners and swept the ground with our detection equipment for any signs of abnormality. I carried a small notepad on a clipboard, a camera mounted on my left shoulder, and a special nylon harness. 15 recorded 9's electromagnetic readings, and I took down the radiation levels from 11. 36 walked along beside me with his oversized flashlight and said nothing. 0.6, 0.3, 0.5. 11 droned on, his voice almost as automated as the clicking counter in his gloved hands. Nominal, nominal, nominal. I scratched the numbers down with my pen and tried not to look up at the ship that loomed ever closer. Per our brief instruction on the equipment, radiation levels were normal for the most part. 9 couldn't find anything remotely strange about the electromagnetic fields in the area. Yet, in my mind's eye, I could see 7's contorted face, hear his inane screams, and I shivered. All around, the scattered branches from the trees that the ship had crushed poked into the sky like skeletal fingers, as if silently trying to warn us away. An icy sensation ran down my back, and I imagined them reaching for me, their silent screams a strange static that rang in my head. It escalated into a roar so that my ears itched, and the breath stuck inside my windpipe like it had been glued there. For a split second, the noise crashed in waves against the inside of my skull, along with a low monotone beeping, almost like a rhythm or a pattern. Something grabbed my shoulder, and I almost jumped out of my skin in fright. 36 met my frightened gaze and pointed with his flashlight ahead of me. "Stay focused. You have to climb now." The massive iron ship squatted not yards away, its thick rivets coated in fresh surface rust, pine needles stuck to its smooth sides, the red paint from beneath the waterline chipped and peeling. All the scanning teams stood in line at the side of the ship and gaped up at it, though with their masks on, I couldn't see their slack jaws. In somber reflex, the first team busily prepared 2 pneumatic launchers to fire grappling hooks over the tall gunwales. One of the other scanners, 3, slogged through the muck to 11. We're taking the bridge, and teams 2 and 3 are on the upper decks. I need you guys to go with teams 5 and 6 to the lower levels and sweep them out, okay? 11 threw a sideways glance at the battleship, and then back at the line of green-clad soldiers far to our rear. They checked it, right? 3's eyes held the same cynical resignation behind his protective mask as 11's. They did, but I don't think we'd be wearing this garbage if it was completely safe. So stay on your toes, alright? Radio me if anything goes wrong. Like that would help, 9 muttered, and I snorted in agreement beneath my own mask. Chunk, chunk. Both pneumatic grapples shot into the air and landed with resounding clangs on the deck of the old warship. As soon as their metal hooks snagged the ship's railing, the advance team unfurled a long brown cargo net and hauled it up the slippery steel by the ropes. It reminded me of the old photographs I'd seen in my school days, black and white visages of men clambering over the sides of these mighty iron titans, loaded with weapons and gear to charge into the unknown surf of war. How strange was it that we, similarly loaded with gear and apprehension, now strove to surmount those same nets and rails to discern why this vessel existed here at all. "Alright, let's move," 3 called from the foot of the cargo net, doing his best to shout in a full-face respirator. "Hands on the verticals, feet on the horizontals, 3 points of contact at all times, and for God's sakes, don't look down." My heart leapt into my throat, but I swallowed hard and sloshed through the rain after the others toward the net. I'd never been very good at climbing in gym class, and the rope would be soaked with the incessant rain by the time my turn came. A fall from that height would mean broken bones at minimum, and who knew what contaminants lay undiscovered on the ground. All it took for 7 was falling asleep with his headphones on 4 miles away. We don't even know what we're dealing with, do we? No one does. The promised $250,000 payment for this job struck me as pitiful now that I stood at the threshold of whatever monstrosity the authorities had stumbled upon in this desolate stretch of Ohio's wilderness. I thought of Sasha and our jubilant plans for when I returned home. I'd been so proud to be able to provide that much for us after 2 years of scraping by paycheck to paycheck. If she only knew where I stood now, I doubted my darling wife would even want the money anymore. 11 and 15 scaled the net, followed by 9 and myself. 36 climbed right next to me, as calm and cool as if this were an everyday occurrence for him. I shook like a leaf, my heart rammed itself against my chest, and the muddy soles of my rubber overboots slid on the net with cruel ease. "Almost there," 36 grunted from his place on the netting. "You're doing fine." I wanted to sound carefree, but my hands trembled so hard that I felt like I stood on a giant oily washing machine. My palm missed the next handhold, and everything went in slow motion. Around me, the entire world jerked downwards, and my extended right boot missed its mark thanks to my backward tumble. In a panic, I squeezed my eyes shut, my lungs closing in terror. A quick, strong weight crushed the air from my chest, and I stopped so hard my teeth clacked together. "Dude, you okay?" I opened my eyes to find 15 and 36 each had a hand on my nylon camera harness, their quick thinking the only thing between me and a 60-foot fall. Scrambling for the net, I didn't breathe until I had all 4 limbs safely back on the thick webbing. Yeah, thanks guys." 15 cocked his head to one side, his voice confused. Okay, good thing you're lighter than you look." 36 chuckled and waited for me to crawl up beside him again. "Come on, it'll be drier inside. I don't care if it's soaked. As long as I can fall, I'll take it." Once my legs swung over the steel rail of the ship and my feet hit the deck, I let out a long sigh of relief. There he is. 9 slaps me on the back, his tone warm and teasing. Almost lost you. Good thing 15 is dummy strong. Or just strong. 15 shook his head at 9, but I could tell the praise pleased him. Seriously though, 24? Don't do that again. Sure thing. I gave him a thumbs up, though my knees knocked beneath my suit. 11 waved us over, his Geiger counter in hand, and his green eyes betrayed a concern that made me forget about my near-death tumble. 9, get your scanner out. 9 unbuckled his bulky electromagnetic scanner from its place on his harness and pointed it over the ship. For the first time in the brief period we'd worked together, 9 seemed speechless. So you're seeing it too. 11 kept his voice low, and all around the deck I noticed the other teams clotted together, talking in hushed, concerned whispers. There's no way the rain did this. These are waterproof. It has to be the ship. What is it? 15 stuck his head over 11's shoulder, too curious to be afraid. 11 held up his device, and my guts soured. 9's electromagnetic scanner was having what amounted to a mechanical seizure, where in 1 second, it flew off the charts in high readings, and the next, it dropped down to nothing at all. 11's Geiger counter, on the other hand, showed radioactive detection, but not in a consistent pattern. It didn't spike randomly like 9's readings, but pulsed in a rhythmic, almost synchronized beat, like an irradiated heart monitor. 15 and I stood frozen, too stunned to record the rapid-fire measurements. 11 tapped the side of his counter with frustrated knuckles, but couldn't get it to stabilize. I'll let 3 know, and he'll radio back to the colonel. Maybe he'll pull us out. Sit tight, guys. The instant 11 walked away, 9 turned to us and cast a few furtive looks toward the deck. Something isn't right. I was told this would be a chemical cleanup job, not some naval version of Chernobyl. And how on earth did they get this thing way out here anyway? They couldn't have. 15 crossed both arms in his typical discomfort at anything that resembled a threat to normalcy. It has to have been an accident. Maybe there was a flood or something. 9 set both hands on his hips in indignation. A flood? Look around, man. We're miles from the nearest major river and at least 2 states away from the ocean. It didn't float here. Besides, did you see how those guards acted? They don't even want to get close to this thing. I leaned back over the railing, and from my high place atop this strange vessel, the line of soldiers in the distant tree line looked like little olive drab ants. Maybe they don't know either. After all, if they knew, why hire us? Why pay money for something they could do themselves? So where did this hunk of junk come from then? 9's question remained unanswered as 11 strode back into our circle, his fists balled. He beckoned the 4 of us closer and spat between angry gritted teeth. 3 wants to pull out, but the colonel said no. I guess radiation isn't at lethal levels, so he wants us to finish our scans and help the evidence teams start cleanup. So here's what we're gonna do. We go down and get our scans done quick as possible. Once we're finished, we radio 3 and hit for the ground again, where it's safe. If the colonel wants, he can come help us shovel radioactive bolts for all I care. But I'm not getting cancer 40 years too soon while he sits on his tail in a nice dry tent. Got it? I nodded along with the others, both emboldened and unsettled at 11's defiance. I didn't want to risk sterility via irradiation, but I still remembered how the colonel had dispatched 7 without so much as blinking an eye. Suppose he ordered us back on the boat at gunpoint? None of us had any guns, and even if we did, there were far more soldiers than workers. Sasha and I couldn't have children if I got shot. 3 led his team to the bridge, and I trailed behind 7, awed at the sheer size of this ship. It seemed to be a huge island of metal, and I racked my brain to try and remember how long my grandfather's minesweeper had been during his service in the Korean War. It's an Iowa class. 36 strode behind me as we went down a long set of iron stairs into the lower decks of the ship. One of the biggest battleships America ever built. They say the guns were so powerful that a full broadside with all 4 turrets would crater the surface of the ocean and expose the hull right down to the keel. I clicked on the headlamp built into my hood and swept its bright beam over the bulkheads of the vessel. Wow, I wonder what this one was called. Seraphim. 9 waved back from the dark corridor at the foot of the stairs and tapped his gloved hand on a circular life preserver on the wall. USS Seraphim. My brow furrowed and I clanked down the rest of the metal stairs in silence. History had been a side hobby of mine for years, but I'd never heard of the USS Seraphim, not in any books or documentaries. Granted, I was no professor, but with such a big ship, I figured I would have heard of it somewhere, especially from Grandpa. He knew tons of ships, and this thing should have been around for the Korean War. Weird. Down 2 flights of narrow steps we went, through oval-shaped metal bulkhead doors and claustrophobic, shadowy corridors. In the dark interior of the battleship, our headlamps illuminated clean hallways, fresh paint on the steel, and even scuff marks on the floor from shoe polish rubbed off boots. Blue tin cups sat on desks, still brimming with coffee that had gone cold, and paper manuals lay open at antiquated control posts. It seemed as if the sailors of the USS Seraphim had left the ship only days ago, everything frozen in time. Did the soldiers clear out the bodies? 9's voice echoed in the dark expanse of a third deck passageway, his scanner still spasming. 11's Geiger counter thumping away at every step. Or am I somehow missing the corpses of thousands of sailors? 11 too acted uninterested in his counter now that we're deep inside the ship, and peered into the various small compartments we passed by with caution, only to find abandoned workstations, empty bunks, and ancient equipment of war. I doubt it. They're having us do all the heavy lifting. Besides, you see any blood? There's not even a scrap of loose clothing. Maybe it's a trick? 15 glanced behind us, and his dark eyes dotted back and forth in paranoia. They could be testing some kind of secret weapon on us or something. My cousin lives an hour away from here. He's been hearing some crazy stuff coming from Barron County. Maybe the government is pretending to be a non-profit for some kind of experiment? Or 9 poked his head into a room and searched the abandoned space with his light. Someone else put this thing here to draw us in, like a mousetrap with cheese. Who? Aliens? 15 tried to sound incredulous, but his gloved hands shook with their clipboard and pen, his headlamp wavering as well. 9 shrugged and kicked at a stray pebble from 11's muddy boots. I don't know, you remember 7's meltdown? He was screaming about a long dark road falling from the sky, and voices. I'm telling you, this thing didn't get here on its own. It was put here on purpose. It doesn't matter how it got here. 11 checked his Geiger counter, but from the way his shoulders hitched in anxiety, I wondered if he didn't secretly agree with one of their theories, or both. The sooner we get this over with, the sooner we can leave, as long as no one gets hurt. I don't care if the aliens and the government have a top secret orgy in this irradiated rust bucket. With that, 11 moved off down the central corridor, followed by 9 and an uneasy 15. Chafing at being left in the rear yet again, I picked up my boot to step through the next bulkhead after them. I whirled around and stared off into another dark corridor on my left. My nerves tingled, and I realized that it wasn't from 11's counter, nor 9's scanner. None of us had cell phones, thanks to the colonel confiscating them after 7's demise. Nothing we had on us could have made that sound. Garbled radio static, followed by more monotone beeps echoed faintly from somewhere deep inside the darkness and sent chills running down my spine. The ship's lights and powers weren't on, and without the massive oil-fired engines producing current, nothing mechanical in this iron behemoth should have worked. Am I hearing things? Should I say something? What if the others think I'm going crazy, like Seven? It's close by. 36 walked up beside me, and the beam of his extra-large flashlight probed the blackness of the unexplored hallway like a white laser. Come on. I opened my mouth to protest, but stopped myself. 36 had never steered me wrong and saved my life at least once today. Besides, we were supposed to report any strange activity to 3, and this counted as strange in my book. Maybe if I was the first one to report something unusual, the colonel would give me a bonus, or at least a phone call home to Sasha. With how close it sounds, we can check it out and catch up with the others before they even notice we're gone. Taking a deep breath, I cast one last cautious glance at the others and pursued 36 down the side hall. If all goes well, this will be the last time you'll hear from me. I've been preparing for days now, planning routes with Sasha, stealing a few license plates from a local scrapyard, and pulling as much cash as I can without arousing suspicion. It's a shame really. Most of the $250,000 in my bank account will stay there untouched, since there's no way I can take it all and not alert Elsar. They've been tailing me ever since I left the work site, and I know they're monitoring my bank account, but I can siphon out enough to get us far from our apartment to a new life, a new home, and a fresh start. Sasha is out cold, curled up under her favorite fuzzy blanket in bed, and I don't want to wake her until I have to. I've been slowly moving our sleep schedule 1 hour at a time over the past few days, so by the time I'm ready to put my plan into motion, it'll happen when the people watching us least suspect it. So for now, I sit here at my desk, typing this out with the shades drawn and the door locked. Once this is over, it's time for a few hours of shut-eye. Then, drive, nap, eat, and repeat. Until then, I'll pour as much as I can remember into this dusty old laptop, with the hopes that someone out there can use this information for good. After leaving the others, I followed 36 further and further into the dark interior of the ship. More long, tight passages snaked between thick steel bulkheads, some with painted warning signs, others with cheery navy posters, or even the occasional pin-up girl. Something about the way they watched us from the old paper unnerved me. The smiles strained, the irises dark and unfeeling. Silence permeated the air, only broken by our footsteps and the footsteps of the other teams echoing through the metal hull from all over the ship. Every breath I took became an abomination, some horrible misdeed that would surely bring judgment raining down on my head like the massive shells from the battleship's main guns. Relax, you're just on edge because of that garbage 9 was saying. Talk to 36. That always calms you down. So, I cleared my throat and squinted into the dark with nervous caution. You think it was aliens? 36 laughed, a booming fatherly chuckle that rang down the empty halls of the Seraphim. No, 9 and 15 have colorful imaginations, but I'm afraid they're both mistaken. Reassured and curious by the confident way he spoke, I fell into step with 36 and began to ignore the murky doorways we passed on either side. So what's your theory? He paused at an intersection and met my inquisitive eyes with his gray ones. Have you ever heard of the term equilibrium? I frowned behind my gas mask. Isn't that like balance? Exactly that. 36 went right, down a corridor lined with big pipes that ran horizontal to the floor. Balance in all things. Take a ship, for example. It needs balance so it doesn't roll over on the water. So you add weights to make it sit lower in the water, but not so much that it actually sinks. Your objective is to float, but in order to float, you sometimes have to sink. Stepping over another bulkhead threshold, I blinked at a burst of lightheadedness and trailed after him. But how does that get a ship into the woods? My perception of sound started to fade, and I noticed that my headlamp had grown dimmer, though 36's flashlight had not. A familiar static crept up in my brain again, and I almost didn't catch 36 making a left turn at a set of downward stairs. If an apple falls from a tree, does it go up or down? Down? I grimaced at a slight hum in my ears, but could only shake my head at it in irritation since the suit hood blocked my fingers from checking my ear canals. Indeed. 36 descended further into the bowels of the ship, my light flickering to a pitiful gasp, while his stayed bright as a shooting star. Nature seeks balance, and when things are out of balance, it restores them in the only way it knows how. But what happens if the curtain of reality, the fabric that holds together what you know of as real, tears? Things slip through, fall out of this reality and into another. An imbalance is created, and so nature must do what it does best: restore balance. Hushed static turned to thunderous waves in my skull that demanded to be released, and my ears itched so bad that my head hurt. Still, I stumbled along after 36, my headlamp going out, with only his soft voice and blinding white flashlight to guide me. 36 ran an affectionate hand over the walls, as though exploring an old family home. The crew of this vessel didn't intend for this to happen any more than the soldiers outside intended for them to crash land it here. But something equally massive must have fallen out of this world in order for a ship this size to fall into it. However, it seems the crew stumbled through a different rift than the Seraphim, and for that, their world lies in peril. At the hall's end, he ducked into a large steel door the size of a pickup truck, and my eardrums rippled with roars of undulating static. My mind reeled, bombarded by eerie screams of strange, warbled fuzz, and eyes clogged my veins in a belated form of confusion. Yet, in the midst of my mental fog, something pierced the chaotic storm like a beacon in the night. The sounds. I hear the sounds again. I leaned against the bulkhead for support. My legs fell asleep, and a numbness inched up my body with slow but malicious progress. It took every ounce of strength I had to lift my feet, which seemed to weigh 1,000 pounds, and drag myself into the room behind 36. Cold air drained my body of heat, and every joint locked up with stiffness. My vision blurred, and I saw Sasha's warm smile. Her dancing blue eyes tasted her sweet lips on mine. I'm so tired, Sasha. So cold. I'll just rest for a bit. Not yet, Greg. 36 caught my arm and kept me from falling on my face, his words soothing and kind. Not today. You have work to do. Look. At his command, my headlamp flared to life. The static died in my head, and I sucked in a gasp of air through my mask. In front of me, an array of complicated switchboards, dials, and controls waited, all the bulbs lit up like a Christmas tree. Newspaper clippings hung from a large corkboard bolted to the cramped walls of the compartment, along with a few black and white photographs of smiling, voluptuous pin-up girls. A clock built by little round dials into the console read 13:02. At the forefront of the array stood a single black metal chair, and on the desk, a set of antique black headphones. Paralyzed by the silence of my brain clearing, I gaped at the room in awe. I recoiled from the headset in surprise. A radio. My whole body shook in perplexed fear, but a strange curiosity overrode my sense of flight. A working radio? How is this possible? 36 picked up the headset, its long black rubber cable plugged into the control panel, and held it out to me. Nature needs balance, Greg. 7 ran from it, and thus lost himself in it. You have a choice. Restore balance, or plunge into the storm. Like a jackhammer, my heart thudded inside my chest, and I stared at the headset in his hand. With an ominous click, the little dial clock on the panel rolled over to 13:04. Deep inside my mind, like a flame lit in the dark, something shifted. Close the rift. As soft as a butterfly's wing beat, the whisper called to me. Not a man or a woman, but a cool metallic voice, emotionless and yet unthreatening. It calmed my raging flood of anxiety, the ice left my veins, and the compartment seemed a little less foreign in that moment. This someone didn't mean me any harm. No, not someone, I realized. It was the voice of something. Something enormous, cold and made of steel. I hear you. Muscles operating on autopilot, I sat down at the desk, unzipped my protective hood, and focused all energy on my thoughts. I want to help. Without my bulky hood, the air felt cool and fresh and dried the sweat on my neck in seconds. My name is Greg. The pulse in my temple slowed from its panicked race, and with a smile, I placed the headphones over my ears. What are your orders, Seraphim? 24. I opened my eyes and stared into the bright glare of no less than 7 LED headlamps. 11, 9, 15, 3, and 2 soldiers stared at me from the narrow doorway of the compartment, eyes wide with shock behind their mask visors. It took me a moment to realize how dark the compartment had become, the panel no longer alive with current, the bulbs and dials out. Around my ears, the black rubber headset barked forth no static, no more beeps, and the whisper in my head had vanished along with 36. Hey, I croaked, confused and petrified, eyeing the leveled rifle barrels of the guards. I was just... Who are you talking to? From behind the soldiers, the colonel pushed into the room, and the others shrank back at his presence. 7's anguished face flashed through my memories again, and I snapped my mouth shut, unable to formulate words. He and I locked eyes, and the colonel flexed his right hand's grip on the service pistol he carried. I asked you a question, 24. Who were you trying to contact? I don't know. I wasn't trying to radio anyone. Please, don't shoot me. Please, I don't want to die. Instead of bleeding for mercy, I glanced back at the desk, clothed in shadow before me, and spotted an open logbook at my right elbow. I came here with 36. He and I went to investigate a sound we heard. Following my gaze, the colonel saw the book, and his eyes narrowed to suspicious slits. With the careful movements of a cat stalking a mouse, he edged around me and picked up the logbook. What little portion of his face I could see took a stunned expression. Is this your handwriting? The colonel pushed the logbook at my face, and among a long series of entries, my own pencil marks lay on the paper, dashes and dots in thick, bunched patterns. What the? When did I write that? I just sat down. I didn't even say anything over the radio. My face heated up, and I squirmed in my chair, too afraid and confused to think clearly. I don't even know what that is. It's Morse code. The colonel withdrew the book again to himself and studied it, using the barrel of the pistol as a pointer on the pages. R16, look around for a code book. There should be a manual around here somewhere. R16 lowered his weapon with a reluctant sigh, but snatched up a small blue book from the far side of the console after a few moments of searching. "Here, sir." Tense silence followed while the colonel worked with the logbook and pencil alongside 3 far to my right. R16 and R12 blocked the door behind me, their rifles still trained on my chest. 11, 9, and 15 huddled to the left side of the compartment, watching me with half-terrified stares. It made me feel like a caged animal, and I only wished to pull my protective hood back up, run to the rainy outside world, and back home to Sasha's waiting arms. The pencil tumbled from the colonel's gloved hand. He looked down at me in the little metal chair, and for the first time, I caught a gleam of disbelief in his eyes. "Who did you say you were with?" 36. I coughed, my throat dry as a bone all at once. "One of the other workers in my team." At this, 3, 11, 9, and 15 all shook their heads in unison. 24, there is no 36. 3 moved to rub his forehead, but couldn't thanks to his suit and had to cross his arms instead. "You are part of a team of 4, just like everyone else. We only have 32 workers on our force, not 36. Stunned, I almost fell out of my seat. "But he saved my life on the nets. I fell and 36 helped catch me. 15, tell them you were there." 15 took an instinctive step back at the entire room now looking at him and dropped his gaze from mine to the floor. "Dude, I got you. I was surprised I could do it too with only one hand. There wasn't anyone else." Like a thunderclap, it hit me. On the latter, 15 had seemed confused at me thanking both him and 36, because to him, we were alone. The colonel hadn't been upset about the strange retro candy bar 36 had given me for my birthday. He'd just been stunned to see candy from the 1940s looking brand new. I was the only one who had ever spoken to 36 or included him in our team. 11 never assigned him jobs. 9 never joked with him. 15 never asked him questions. Only me. Because 36 hadn't been there. But before I could panic at the sheer insanity of that realization, my eyes caught a small blur of black letters stenciled on one of the Geiger counters held by the guards. Property of the Environmental Liminal Space Alleviation and Reduction Program. Just like the wording I had seen on the dosimeter on my first day. The more I looked, the more I saw it, printed on an obscure label on the small rucksacks all of us workers had been given, stamped onto the receivers of the rifles in the guards' hands, and etched into the handheld radio that was hooked to the colonel's belt. These weren't hand-me-downs. This was company property. We were company property. And it occurred to me that in the entire time I'd worked there, I'd never once seen an emblem or label of the Black Crow Foundation, only for LSAR, because, just like 36, the Black Crow Foundation wasn't real either. They're not going to let me leave now. I'll be shot, or worse. I'll never see Sasha again. Tears welled up in my eyes and I fought them in desperate panic. "Please, I'm fine, really. I'm not dangerous. Really, I'm not. I'm not like 7. I don't hear voices or anything. Please, Colonel, sir, you don't even have to pay me for today. I'll just go." "Today?" The colonel leaned down to meet my eye level, his harsh tone softened by shock. 24, you've been missing for 3 days. "What?" I pleaded, and my outstretched hands trembled with despair. "That's not possible. It hasn't even been an hour. Calm down." He placed the logbook in my lap, and the colonel patted me on the shoulder with an almost sympathetic touch. "Just stay calm, and no one will shoot you, alright? I need you to do something for me. Just this one thing, and you can go home. I promise. Read this." "Really?" Hope and relief welled in my chest. I snatched up the logbook and sniffled back tears behind my gas mask. Home. I would be home by the end of the week with Sasha, and I could put all this behind me. This entire idea had been one big lousy mistake, one I swore to myself I would never repeat. But my eyes found the words on the translated page, and I fought to breathe. 12:19, incoming. BB-136, come in. BB-136, this is CV-24. We have lost visual of you in the northern quadrant of the AO. Repeat, we have lost visual of you. Please confirm location. Over. 12:25, incoming. BB-136, this is CV-24, 7th Fleet. What is your location? 12:37, incoming. BB-136, USS Seraphim, are you reading us? Over. 12:42, incoming. BB-136, please confirm your location and status. 12:46, incoming. BB-136, be aware that multiple Soviet submarines have been reported in your vicinity. Are you under attack? Over. 1300, incoming. BB-136, this is Admiral Halsey, 7th Fleet Command on the USS Windham Bay. If you do not report within the next 10 minutes, I will assume you have been attacked by the enemy and will engage all Soviet craft within the area of operations with our full arsenal, including our atomic systems. For the last time, USS Seraphim, please respond. My gaze traveled to the newspaper clippings on the wall, and a horrific dread filled my guts. Each of the headlines came from post-World War II dates, but the events were all wrong. Truman vows to retake Poland from Soviets as atomic race intensifies. Stalin sends warships around Midway to thwart rumored US nuclear-capable warships. Red Army tanks square off with Allied soldiers in deadly showdown outside Berlin. 7th Fleet sent to force Russian submarines from Pacific shipping lanes. The others watched my reaction with startled wonder. But for me, the truth rang like the long screaming descent of a bomb. It never ended. I whispered to myself behind the black rubber fortress of my mask. Not for them. They just kept fighting. Until I forced myself to look down at the last message of the logbook and fought the urge to throw the little tablet. Unlike the other entries, this line of Morse code had been written in my handwriting. 1304, outgoing. Mayday, Mayday, 7th Fleet. This is BB-136, USS Seraphim. Do not launch your attack. I repeat, do not launch your attack. We are not engaged by the Soviets. Our vessel has been caught in a maelstrom at approximately 165 degrees east and 30 degrees north. Electrical activity from the storm seems to be causing our radio to malfunction, and our lookouts report unusual waves of dangerous proportions. We are unable to veer out of the path of the storm at this time and will try to ride it out. After it passes, we will rendezvous with you at Midway. This is BB-136, USS Seraphim, signing off. I didn't even feel the logbook slide through my fingers on its way to the cold steel floor. Instead, I looked back at the little dial clock on the control panel and choked back a sob. The clock had stopped on 1304.